words of welcome. Shabbat Shalom, Hine Ma Tov. We'll sing together. It's good to be together with you and with you.
Hine Ma Tov U'Manayim, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Ma Tov U'Manayim, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
Well, it is certainly good to be together with you, whether you're joining us virtually. For the few of the proud, the ones who made it in person tonight as well, good to have you here as well. Shabbat Shalom, I'm Rabbi Heath Wattenmaker, joined by our wonderful musicians and dear friend of this congregation, Fred Ross Perry. Big thank you to you for being here as well. And a thank you to you for joining us, whether online or virtually. I thought, given that it's Erev Christmas and we're in a synagogue, what better way to celebrate than to do just a few short trivia items, a little trivia, just to test your knowledge of the connections between Jews and Christmas this Shabbat, December 24th. So I'm going to shout it out. If you, I'm going to ask a couple questions. If you know the answer, shout it out. And at home, you can play along. You can shout it out into the room. And if nobody's around, it's great, because if you're wrong, nobody will ever know. So first question, where did the custom of Jews eating Chinese food on Christmas begin? Was it San Francisco, Shaker Heights, Ohio, Lower East Side, New York, or Mount Sinai? New York, correct. The Lower East Side of New York. How about this one? Which famous Springer wrote Santa Baby, first released in 1953? Was it Jerry Springer, Philip Springer, or Yaakov Springer? All right, Philip Springer is the correct answer. Let's see, how about which famous Jewish composer did not write a Christmas song? Was it Irving Berlin, or Mel Torme, or George Gershwin, or Jules Stein? One of them did not actually write a Christmas song in their career.
I'm going with Gershwin.
Gershwin, correct. Very good, Fred. All right, so your knowledge of Jews and Christmas, the connection is long and deep. We certainly wish our Christian friends and family and neighbors a Merry Christmas, and it is certainly good to be together. There's an old tradition, a Hasidic tradition dating back to the 17th century called Nittelnacht, which was a way of protecting Jews from anti-Jewish violence on Christmas, and certainly a night of study and gathering as a community. So tonight, certainly we come together in joy and in celebration, and certainly we also recognize those who are here and joining us virtually as well in a house of mourning or sorrow. It's such a blessing to be able to celebrate Shabbat together We'll begin by bringing just a little bit of extra light into our midst. We'll call up the Tash family. Rachel and Ted celebrated their 33rd anniversary this week. And of course, their daughter, Joanna, to lead us in lighting candles on page 2 or 120. Go for it, Ted. Ask Rachel to lead us in Kiddush on page 5 or 123. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzah banu. Shabbat kodsho, ve'ahava uvratzoni nefilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tefillah l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim. Joanna, thanks so much for being here as well. It's so nice to have you home. I'm sure your mom and dad are loving it as well. All right. Thank you, guys.
Oh, that's great.
We'll continue our service welcoming Shabbat, the Sabbath bride. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and then rise for verse 9. Lecha Dodi is on page 20 or 138.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor zachor b'diborecha hishmi'anu, el hamiuchad Adonai echad hu shemo echad, Hashem u'tiferet ve'elikila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'neilka, ki mekor haberacha v'roshmi kedem netzuha, sof ma'asei ma'shavatim la. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri kiva orech, kumi ori uri shedaberi, Lord Adonai alayich
Turn to page 28 or 146. A prayer of community, a prayer that says, hey, we're here, we are together, and we are ready to pray. Baruch Hu, page 28. Our prayer for the evening is one that really focuses on God's role in making order out of chaos, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from the light. We'll sing this chant, roll into dark. You can find the words, if you're here, you can find the words. It's number 2 on the song sheet. And if not, see the slide at home.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
page 34 or 152. Sing words of the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Can be seated. On page 36 or 154, we chant words of Ve'ahavta together. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta ba'am, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha b'derech, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. This Shabbat, this week, we begin the book of Exodus with Parshat Shemot, which means names. It begins by recalling the names of the generation that went from Canaan to Egypt, and really, this first parsha in Shemot sets off and sets in motion the journey of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt to the possibility of freedom somewhere out on the horizon. And we sing this prayer that's pulled directly from Exodus chapter 15, so not for another couple of weeks that we'll get there, but reminds us that redemption and freedom is possible even if sometimes it's just on the other side of the horizon. It's out there somewhere if we just keep moving towards it. Micha Mocha is on page 40 or 158.
Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha nedar ba'kodesh Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai Micha Mocha nedar ba'kodesh Torah tehilot osef eleh Torah tehilot osef eleh Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Malchutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam livnei Moshe Miriam Te'elim Tehilot, Osef Ele Adonai, Yimloch Leolam Vaed.
ונאמר כי בדה אדוני את יעקב וגלוי מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני קהל ישראל. Turn to words of comfort in the darkness, words of Hashkivenu. It's number 3 on the song sheet and on your screen at home.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Adonai, Haporei Sukkot, Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
On page 46 or 164, invite you to rise if you're able. Rise physically, or perhaps just lift yourself up, lift your soul up. This is a chance for a little bit of spiritual uplift, a little bit of spiritual and personal connection. We'll sing the opening meditation together and then take some time for our own silent prayer. You can use the words on the page that go through page 63, or whatever words are in your heart or on your mind this evening. Once you've finished your prayer, you can be seated, but we'll begin together on page 46. we're on page 60 or 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov elecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
When we gather together as a community, whether it's virtually or in person or in this hybrid space, there's strength to be drawn from the gathering, not just for purposes of protection, but certainly for just knowing that we are not alone. As we turn to our prayer of healing, Misha Berach, on page 253 or 371, this week we're sending thoughts and prayers of healing and strength to David Ben Ami, Ginny Anderson, Jerry Blum, Renee Budak, Pat Daly, Diane Denenberg, Liz Dietz, Kathleen Duncan, Emily Duncan Horning, Mary Lou Garfinkel, Selena Glader, Diana Guthaner, Barbara Heiken, Dorothy Huppert, Moritz Huppert, Marvin Jones, Joan Carlin, Aaron Levinson, Stan Myers, Alex Nissenberg, Eshra Ozturk, Faye Ellen Perlis, Rabbi Lori Phillips, Kathy Pressman, Sue Reahud, Jonathan Sachs, David Baruch Ben Simona, Matthew Smith, Donna Spanger, Hillary Cohen Streeter, Myron Turbo, and Nicole Gent Wickenheiser. If there's someone that you're thinking of, I invite you to share their names. Page 253, middle of the page.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Sometimes there's nothing like a good children's book to capture how I'm feeling and offer deep insight on how to move forward. There's something about the way that a good children's book author can take a complex set of difficult feelings and distill them into a heartfelt, clear message. This week, I've been thinking about the Mo Willems book, My Friend is Sad. It features two of Willems' most beloved characters, Gerald, an elephant, and Piggy, who's a pig. Throughout Willems' Elephant and Piggy books, these two best friends go on all sorts of silly journeys and antics together, but always have some important lessons hidden between the snarky humor and the witty dialogue. In My Friend is Sad, Piggy comes upon Gerald, who seems down in the doldrums. Though it's unclear at the beginning of the story what exactly is bothering Gerald, Piggy understands early on that her friend is sad. What follows are Piggy's usual high energy and wacky attempts to cheer her friend up. She pretends to be a cowboy, a clown, a robot, but despite a momentary smile, Gerald is still sad. But after all the antics, when Piggy just sits next to Gerald, she says to him, "I am sorry. I wanted to make you happy, but you were still sad." In that moment, something shifts. Gerald replies, "I'm not sad now. I am happy." "You're happy?" replies Piggy. "I am happy because you are here," says Gerald, wrapping Piggy up in a big elephant hug. I've been thinking a lot about this book this week for a few reasons, particularly because my friend, our dear cantor Jamie, is sad. As many of you may know by now, her mom, Marcy Schball, passed away early Wednesday morning. Marcy was a kind, warm soul and a wonderful regular presence at so many of our B'nai Mitzvah services on Saturday mornings over the years. She will certainly be missed, and her memory will continue to be a blessing to all who knew and loved her. And we certainly send our prayers for comfort to Jamie, Marcel, Ella, and Sam, and Lauren and George. But there's also a more general sense of sadness, or maybe it's despair, or what some mental health professionals call ambiguous loss or ambiguous grief, that seems to be in the air as news reports of the rapid increase in the Omicron variant spreads across the country and across the globe. With this new spike comes the now all too familiar sense of uncertainty and frustration as well. For some, it's a reminder of the trauma of those early days of this pandemic, or perhaps a recognition that we're still not past the trauma brought on by a global pandemic and the disruptions and losses left in its wake. But this is not March of 2020. Now we have vaccines and boosters. We understand the tools and the safety precautions much better than those scary early days. But still, enough already. One of the things that I love most about what Piggy and Gerald learn in My Friend is Sad is the very simple and elegant way that Mo Willems uses their experience to teach us empathy. The idea of being present for someone going through something difficult. It's not taking on their pain, and it's not about trying to make it go away. It's a very Jewish lesson of just being present, not worrying about finding the right thing to say or do, but just showing up, whether physically or with a phone call, even to just say, "I'm here for you," or I care and I can just listen, or even on Zoom. When those we care about are hurting, we show up. There's a teaching in the Shulchan Aruch, the Jewish legal codes, that when visiting a mourner, comforters, yes, this is what our tradition calls someone visiting a mourner, menachamim, literally ones who provide comfort. Comforters should not begin a conversation with the mourners until the mourners begin one first. It's about following the lead of the person or people who are hurting. Certainly, Judaism and the Jewish people are no strangers to sadness and despair, to pain and loss. But at its core, Judaism focuses not on despair, but on the importance of holding on to hope in the midst of the most impossibly difficult moments. This week, as I mentioned earlier, we begin the book of Exodus, which recounts our central narrative of hope, of moving from the pain of the things that restrict or constrict us and journeying slowly but determinedly towards freedom. Our Torah portion this week, and indeed the Hebrew name for the book of Exodus, is Shemot, names. The portion begins with a recounting of the names of Jacob's sons, unfortunately omitting his daughter Dinah, who went down and settled in Egypt. And in the subsequent success and flourishing the children of Israel enjoyed in Egypt. But despite this success, over time, the text tells us a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph, and the tides turn. Our portion this week starts off with an apparent loss of hope, moving from the high point of Joseph's fame and respect throughout the land of Egypt to the rise of a new Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, and instead sees the Israelites as a threat. In an attempt to minimize this perceived threat, he enslaves them, but still their numbers increase. In fear, he orders that newborn males be put to death, but thanks to the bravery of the midwives, many Israelite baby boys are spared. Things continue to devolve until, after years of this increasing oppression, the Israelites cry out to God. In the text we read, God remembered God's covenant with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. God looked upon the Israelites and God took notice of them. It is perhaps this outcry, this moment of faith in impossible circumstances, that sets the Exodus in motion. The verses that follow this outcry cut immediately to Moses, tending a flock as an Egyptian outcast in Midian, who encounters a bush that was all aflame but not consumed. This moment sets Moses on a path that brings him back to Egypt, bringing the hope of redemption to the Israelites. Despite his resistance and the dangers that lay ahead, Moses shows up for his tribe. Throughout Jewish history, one traditional response when faced with fear or difficulty or death is to turn to the words of the Psalms, words that speak of God's nearness and ask some of the hard questions we often find ourselves asking in challenging moments. In Psalm 27, which is traditionally read throughout the month of Elul, the month of introspection and soul-searching leading up to the High Holy Days, we read, "Hear, Adonai, my voice. I am crying out. My heart has said to you, seek my face. I am seeking your face, Adonai. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not forsake me. Do not abandon me, God of my deliverance." The psalm beseeches God to not forget about us. Even if you don't believe in God, or if this image of God doesn't resonate with you, it's a call out into the universe, a prayer that we not be left all alone, that in our moments of despair, we need help. We are not meant to go it alone. At the end of the psalm, the psalmist concludes, "Kaveh el Adonai chazak v'ya'ametz libecha v'kaveh el Adonai." Wait, kaveh, wait for Adonai. Fill your waiting with hope in Adonai. Let your heart be strong and of good courage. and wait hopefully, kaveh, for Adonai. The word kaveh, repeated twice in this last verse, here translated as wait, is also connected to the word tikva, hope. In his commentary on this last verse, Rabbi Richard Levy of blessed memory explains that the word kaveh suggests not merely patience, wait, but an active, prayer-filled patience, hope. What Rabbi Levy suggests is the idea that through hope, that though hope includes an element of patience and waiting, at its core, hope is about more than just waiting. It is waiting with faith. Doing the robot or dressing up as cowboys or clowns might not take away sadness. But for Gerald, it does bring a momentary smile to his face, a bit of joy and hope in the midst of sadness. When we show up and are present for ourselves and for those going through difficulty, we carry hope and faith with us. Together, we can wait actively and work towards fashioning a world with a little less brokenness than the world as it is today. Shabbat Shalom. Our service continues on page 282. In the middle, at the bottom of the page, I'll ask those who are able to please rise for Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, L'Teit Gedula L'Yotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoy Ha'aratzot, Velo Samanu Kemishpechot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, V'gor Aleinu Kechol HaMolam, V'anachnu Korim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 287. V'nemar Shahaya Adonai L'melech Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shemo Can be seated. As we prepare for words of Mourner's Kaddish, I'd like to offer these words by Yehuda Amichai, a man in his life. A man in his life has no time to have time for everything. He has no room to have room for every desire. Ecclesiastes was wrong to claim that. A man has to hate and love all at once, with the same eyes to cry and to laugh, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, make love in war and war in love, and hate and forgive and remember and forget, and order and confuse and eat and digest what long history does in so many years. A man in his life has no time. When he loses, he seeks. When he finds, he forgets. When he forgets, he loves. When he loves, he begins forgetting. And his soul is knowing and very professional. Only his body remains an amateur always. It tries and fumbles. He doesn't learn and gets confused, drunk and blind in his pleasures and pains. In autumn, he will die like a fig, shriveled, sweet, full of himself. The leaves dry out on the ground, and the naked branches point to the place where there is time for everything. As I read the name of a loved one or friend, I invite you to rise in their honor. We are in the period of Shiva, the first week of mourning for Gisela Olaf, the mother of Larry Olaf, mother-in-law of Linda, grandmother of Nicole, Jacqueline, and Dana. Also lost to our community this week was Arnold Seidel, the husband of Joan Seidel, our member, Arnold Seidel, husband of Joan Seidel, father of Craig Seidel, father-in-law of Donna, grandfather of Tommy and Danny. Our member, Tamara Grelk, wife of Matt Grelk, mother of Oliver and Emerson, daughter of Bobby and Neil, and sister of Dara, AJ, and Jared. And Marcy Spall, mother of Lauren Spall, mother-in-law of George Brown, and the mother of our beloved cantor, Jamie Spall, mother-in-law of Marcel Bergman, and grandmother of Sam and Ella Bergman. We're in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning for Walter Jennings, Arlene Gilliland, and Anne Hunting Highmark. This Shabbat marks the yahrzeit and the anniversary of death for Carol Adler, Marco Aguado, Carrie B. Alper, Pauline Anderson, Gerald Bernstein, Lee Bienenstock, Seymour Birnbaum, Surik Borokov, Abrash Borokhov, George Bragan, Suzanne Chassé, Gary Citron, Dorothy Citron, Ira Davison, David Feldman, Heather Frankel, Sheldon Friedman, Molly Ginsberg, Maurice Haberman, Harriet Harris, Jim Hildebrand, Pearl Hirsch, Margaret Jacobs Hirsch, Bill Hodges, Pauline Hoffman, Bertha Horowitz, Jack Horowitz, Jessel Jacobs, Helen Janklow, Jerry Katz, Robert Kraus, Edna Kirsch Liebensbaum, Gerald Leibowitz, Stanley Levins, Marion Levin, Stanley Macklin, George McLeod, Edward I. Menkoff, Jeffrey Merriman, Evelyn Miller, Sophia Mitchner, Chaim Neidick, Matthew Newelt, H. Peter Oshman, Brian Person, Philip Richtel, Esther Robinson, Sue Ross, Sophie Rothblatt, Harvey Rubenstein, Carol Schrago, Samuel Silberman, Craig Smith, Lillian Steinberg, Arnold Steinberg, Harry Strauss, Benjamin Strelo, Sally Unterman, Pinchas Weissman, and Irving Weisler. I invite you to share names of others who you're remembering. And we rise together. And we rise together as a community of support and strength as we turn to words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 294 or 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha b'reichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Ve'al kol Yisrael Yisrael ve'im eru amen.
You can be seated. Our tzedakah box this week, our fund this month, is going towards the Israeli Women's Network, founded in 1984 with the aim of promoting a better society in Israel through social equality by focusing on women's equality and creating the social, physical, economic, and judicial conditions for their prosperity. Encourage you to give generously here in person. You can also donate on our website or through Venmo. Our handle is @Beth-Am. Encourage you to give generously if you want to just signify December tzedakah box or Israel or Israeli Women's Network in your donations. We'll make sure that it gets to this wonderful organization. We'll end our service with that last line of Kaddish, this prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom B'Romav.
Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen.
Join me in Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Oseh Shalom B'Romav, Hu Yaseh Shalom